Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and today I have a bit of an odd card for you. Let's jump right in. So I'm going to cut down my panel to start. So I do have an A2 base, and I have a piece of HammerMill cardstock here, and I cut off about 1/2 inch on both sides, just to kind of make it so that there would be a fair amount of background that you could see. And then I brought in the Halloween collage paper that Tim Holtz did. I'm not sure if this is still available. If it is, I'll have it linked and listed down below. If it's not, and the Christmas one is still available, that one's just super stunning as well. So I'll have something listed if you're interested. So this card is really mostly, I had zero idea what I was doing. I grabbed a bunch of products that I hadn't used yet, and really wanted to create something with them. So as you guys saw from the picture, that's what I came up with. So this is a very mixed media-esque card that went in several different directions. So bear with me as we kind of move through this, because I had no plan, which generally when I create, I can see what I'm after making in my head. So I have a direction, and then sometimes the card goes exactly how I see it, and sometimes it doesn't, and I have to, pivot through my design. But with this one, I had zero plan. I had no idea what I was making. I just kind of grabbed some products that I loved and that I thought would be really fun and that I hadn't used, and came up with the design. So bear with me. This card takes a few turns, but we get there in the end, and I think that I like it. It's just very different than my usual style of card, but I'm trying to kind of push myself and do different things and try different things. So I like how this turned out, although I did struggle a bit with it. So I did use a piece of that collage paper. You saw me, I'm adhering it to my A2 base. And then I brought in that panel, left that aside to dry, the collage papered base. And then I brought in my little panel, and I'm going to use Salvaged Patina. And now I used a blending brush with this because I thought that it would give me a lighter color, and it probably would have, except that my Salvaged Patina is still very, very juicy. So even just barely touching the brush to the ink pad is giving me a lot of ink. So, I mean, I don't mind. I would have maybe preferred a bit of a lighter blend than the kind of what I end up with. But regardless, again, I didn't really have a plan, so I'm kind of just winging it with what works and what kind of comes from what I'm kind of making here. And I do kind of try to make this like almost wispy effect at the top with my little brush, just kind of creating some interest and texture in the color of the background. Now, in the end, you don't really see this because I'm going to stamp on this panel, but I just kind of thought it would be cool to have this kind of wispy texture going out of the color at the top. But I do end up kind of stamping over top of that, so you don't really even notice. And then for added texture and interest in the background, I sprayed a little bit of water excuse me, on the background, and then I just mopped it up with my microfiber towel that sits on my desk all the time. And I just kind of used that to create little water spotlets in the colored part. And again, you don't end up seeing it super well in the end, sadly, but I do think that it was pretty neat. And then I brought in the Tim Holtz Exquisite stamp set. This came out in his Halloween release, I believe, but Stampers Anonymous stamps are available all the time. I mean, you can get the first one that came out. So that's really, really cool. And I have used this stamp before. This is probably the only thing other than, my tools and whatnot that I've used before in this card. And this stamp set too, sorry. This is the Noteworthy stamp set. I am slowly working my way through all of the sentiments in that stamp set because I love them all. But I think that I have actually used this one before. I just thought it was pretty fitting and I liked it. So that's kind of why I went to it. But, and now you can see that I'm just using a file to take off the outside. You could absolutely cut it. That works too. This just gives it a different texture. There's no, right or wrong way to do this. And because, as I've told you guys before, I used to do nails, so I do have a fair amount of files on hand. So I just kind of used this to lightly rough up the edge where the paper is. You could use water for a very similar effect with collage paper, although this is the first time I've used collage paper in a card. So that was kind of interesting. But this just lightly roughs up where the collage paper is sitting so that it rips off cleanly and there's no like leftover bits or anything like that. But you could put a little bit of water there as well and it would do the same. A very similar thing. This is just, I have them on hand and I like how it kind of roughs it up a little bit. So this is just another thing to add a little bit of texture to help the card kind of come together. Because again, I still have no clue what I'm doing at this point. So when I put my panel, my Salvaged Patina panel on top, it was, the colors in the background don't go with what I'm aiming for. So to help combat that, I brought in some gesso. This is just some white gesso, and I watered it down a little bit, and then I'm going to brush it across the colored areas to kind of help them recede into the background again. Now, this is going to make it so you can't really tell as much what's in the design, but the biggest parts of the design that I really wanted were kind of that like arch in the top would be right corner and the music notes on the bottom. So you don't need to do this. However, it just, those colors were taking your eye away from the panel. So I did want to change that. And then to help give my stamp a little bit more weight, I just added a gray border around it. This is a Copic marker. This is the N5. Be careful because I stamped in Versafine and that is not a Copic safe ink. HammerMill is a Copic safe paper, but the ink that I used and the Distress Oxide underneath are not. So I just am very lightly going around it and I'm trying really hard not to actually touch the ink, just be right beside it. But this is going to add some depth and dimension to that stamped image and make the parts that are sitting on top of my Salvaged Patina just look like they actually have a little more dimension to them, although they don't. And then here I decided I really wanted to add a little bit of metallic into this design. So I brought in a piece of metallic. This is the Classics metallic Kraft-stock. This is also a Tim Holtz product. And I gave it a really thin border and I'm going to adhere that down. See, this is where I'm kind of like, okay, this is my card. Like now I'm done. And I didn't like it. It didn't feel finished to me. So I'm going to create a cluster with some ephemera here in a minute to kind of try to finish the design. I mean, you could stop here. There's nothing wrong with it and it's not bad. It's just that it didn't feel finished. So here you can see that I've brought in several different pieces of ephemera. I have a bunch of ephemera because I like to use it in my pen pal letters. So I'll have a bunch of different things listed down below, but most of it was from the Tim Holtz Memoir Ephemera pack and the Tim Holtz label pack. And then there was also the leaves are from a pop-up pad by ScrapBoys, which is a cardstock company. They make really beautiful pattern paper and other pieces, but you cut out the ephemera from their pads and they're not really expensive, and a local store here brings them in, so I like to support my local store. So I go there and I pick up some cool stuff that I haven't found anywhere else, and that is one of them. So those leaves in the top left corner are from that pop-up pad, and then pretty much everything else is from a Tim Holtz ephemera pack. As you guys know, if you've been with me for a minute, you know I really like Tim Holtz products and I like to support designers that are bringing positivity into the industry. So, I mean, I have a big array of stuff in my collection, but that is one of my favorite things. So it's kind of what draws me to his stuff. Yeah, so this, I would love to know what you guys think about this card because it was just, I don't know, it had no direction, if that makes sense. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And my husband came in the middle and saw it before I added the ephemera and said that he liked it. So, you know, it wasn't a bad design in my mind. It was just that it didn't feel finished to me. So I'd love to know what you guys think. Did it look finished at that point, or do you think that the ephemera was a good addition to the design? I'd love to hear either way, because I mean, this card is just not my norm, and I'm still sitting here looking at it and I don't dislike it. I'm not sure that I like it, if that makes any sense. But then of course I had to bring in some silver pearls to go with that metallic paper that you can just kind of see peeking out around the one panel. And those are from Pink Fresh. I love them. If you guys have been with me for a hot minute, you know I love pearls. They're like my favorite thing ever. And of course, because I could not let this card not have any more sparkle on it, I had to bring in my Spectrum Noir clear glitter pen, and I just colored across some of the florals from that stamp set just to add a little extra shimmer and shine in the design. There's no rhyme or reason to this really, other than I like it. So it's totally up to you as to how much or how little you want to add. I do have a tendency towards a more is more crafting style, so I do tend to end up adding more things than I necessarily need. But I do think it turned out interesting. Like, I think it was a challenge and it was different than my normal. So I don't think that it's a bad thing. It just was different than what I kind of was thinking. But I would love to hear what you guys think of this card. It was just a really interesting project that I think turned out kind of interesting. So that is what I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're considering leaving me a like, leaving me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday, and every Monday is Christmas cards until the 25th of December. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.